Hi and welcome to BioStock Studio, where today we will listen to a presentation from DanCann Pharma and CEO Jeppe Krog Rasmussen. Welcome Jeppe, and please go ahead.
Thanks for having me. Hi, my name is Jeppe Krog Rasmussen and I'm the founder and the CEO of DanCann Pharma. Formally, disclaimer as a listed company. Today, more than 80% of all Danes who are in or have been within medication with medical cannabis get their so-called medication from illegal and unsafe channels. We simply don't think that's good enough, and for the very same reason we founded DanCann Pharma back in 2018. DanCann Pharma is a biopharmaceutical company and we are powered by cannabinoids targeting the European markets. The company is acting under the so-called Danish pilot program, which was set into action back in 2018, and we're both licensed within production and also distribution in Denmark. The company handles so-called approved pharmaceuticals, which is going through clinically staged development, but also so-called non-registered medicines as we define medical cannabis. A common name for all of it is that it is only prescription medicines that we handle in the company. We're mainly focusing on the pain segment for the patients, but also have an eye on mental disorders, skin conditions, appetites, and well-being for humans in general. We raised more than 80 million as of to date, and we do also have a smaller loan facility. All this based on more than 4,500 investors, and we're listed on the Spotlight stock market. Tapping a bit more into the three different pillars that we are based on as a company, we have first and foremost our ingredient and biomaterials where we're manufacturing our own goods. Then we have our subsidiary called Cangrowth, where we import, export and distribute medical cannabis products for the patients. And lastly, we are about to build a pipeline of drugs and pharmaceuticals for the future. If we're looking even further into these steps to put a bit more detail on it, as of today, we have our own facility in Ansager, Denmark, where we have used a lot of our funds raised as of to date, where we are right now in the development scheme, which is an R&D part of the actual pilot program with medical cannabis in Denmark. We set the facility into action back in April last year, in 2021, and we formally applied to be obtained under the pilot program in January this year, 2022. Furthermore, we expect this to be approved before the end of this year, and we have now formally been confirmed that we will have the inspection from the Danish Medicines Agency during November this year. If you look at the second leg of our business, we have the import, export and distribution of medical cannabis products for the patients. Last year, we bought one of our co-colleagues called Cangrowth, which is a distribution company based in Denmark, having all the necessary license to operate, and has as of today 3 products in the pipeline, which generated last year a profit EBITDA of more than 1.6 million. Furthermore, we do also have new products in the pipeline for this part of our business. And right now we have an ongoing application that we submitted back last year also for an oil in an extract product type, so to speak. Lastly, we do have our in-license of drugs and pharmaceuticals. This leg is more on a long-term basis, and the whole part of the idea behind this is to in-license and acquire exclusive rights for new exciting candidates, which can either be in a preclinical stage, it can be in a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3, which we also believe in for the future. I want to take a bit deeper, even deeper point out on our commercial breakthrough on our first facility called Biotech Pharm 1. As mentioned before, we expect this to be approved with the EU GMP certification before the end 2022. As also mentioned before, we will have the inspection very soon, which I think is a very good trigger for the company, especially also what we're doing right now. And furthermore, we also just recently communicated and disclosed that we have closed our very first binding agreement with a German distributor called Medicon Pharma. In continuation about in terms of that, we do also expect to follow up this with closing the books for our total outputs of the facility throughout 2023 to 2025 during Q4 2022, Q1 2023. And just to put some kind of like illustration for what it is to be in our facility, it can be quite difficult to imagine. We are 100% indoor facility using a quite novel technology called aeroponics, which was actually a technique developed back in the day by NASA when you believed and thought about doing plants in the space, so to speak. So it is quite difficult to imagine, but at least I will try to give you some pics on here to show you how it looks like and what it is. Taking you through, like in a more visual way, the upcoming milestones and guidance. We will have the EU GMP approval within this year. Further on, the extract of cannabis in an oil solution will also be approved by the DMA before this year. Then we will have our very first shipment of biomaterial in May next year, and that followed up by further development of our both legs of the business, so to speak. And then we have just recently, in continuation about disclose our prospectus for doing what we're going to do, the rights issue, disclosed our very first guidance for the company, targeting a revenue of 60 to 100 million in the period between 2025 to 2027. And lastly, I also think what's important to state that based on if we succeed with doing what we're trying to do right now in the rights issue, we will have our break even during 2024. So right now, DanCann Pharma, we are in the middle of a rights issue. We are targeting a sum of 28.5 million. Most of those funds are going to be placed in so-called operational costs, and that is partly based on finalizing the EU GMP process, but also finalizing the development of our in-house product portfolio. It is like that from the point where you have the approved facility, you need to do stability studies on your products, and that will also take some time and some cost, and for the same reason that is placed within here. Besides that, we do of course also have interesting into development of product portfolio even further, both in-house but also our import part of the business. And lastly, we would like to cut down some of our loan outstanding at the moment, so we have 25% of the funds will go to repayment of that. So the offer, in short, as mentioned just before, we are targeting 28.5 million. We have already secured with guarantees approximately 77% of the whole emission, so to speak, which is equal approximately 21.9 million. The offer will be that you can subscribe for units, which is partly based in terms of shares, but also in warrants, which is equal a price, entering price of 0.6 Danish kroner a share. All this to a pre-valuation of 17.1 million Danish. And the period for the transaction will go from 31 of October to 11 of November, 5 p.m. Central European Time. So to sum up why you should invest in DanCann Pharma, I think there is a lot of good reasons. We are in a strong competitive situation. We have a very clear company purpose. We are so close to commercial breakthrough in terms of our EU GMP and to actually have distribution from our own production. We are extremely low, you can say, in terms of our market cap compared to many of our competitors. And now we do also have the guidance from the company, which also sets some kind of the points for the future, which I think you definitely should try to look into. So yeah, with that, I would like to say thank you for your attention. And if you have any questions or anything, feel very welcome to reach out to me, and then I will do my very best to answer your questions.
That's good, because I do have a couple of questions for you. You talked quite a lot here about your own manufacturing facility and that it's hopefully nearing an approval. What exactly would the approval mean? What is it that will give you that you don't have today?
To keep it short, Cecilia, the approval will mean that we get our license to operate, to put it very short. Right now we are in an R&D kind of phase of our journey in terms of our own production. And when we have the approval, we will actually turning into a commercial business, so to speak. And what we today spend money to get rid of, we will suddenly actually be in a position where we will have revenue from these products instead. So it is our kind of license to operate, I would put it.
So when they come to do this inspection, what is it that they look at the facility?
It is very much a deep dive into the actual QMS system, which is the quality management system, looking into all the procedures and holding up against that we are doing what we're writing, so to speak. So it will be most likely like a 2-day inspection. They will come, sit at the table, and we'll go throughout the many hundreds, if not thousands, pages of documentation that we are or have been doing before these days. So yeah. That's very much a big part of it, and I think they will take a quick walk in the production, perhaps a few hours, but most of the work to be done and to look into is actually all the papers, so to speak.
You mentioned competition here a little bit, but what does the competition look like in this area, which is still relatively new within pharmaceutical?
Yeah, you can say so. We are still based in a very unmature market, and it's very new, and we are also one of the first movers. I think in Denmark we are perhaps a handful or 2 handfuls that are serious players within this field. So we definitely think there is room for several players, so to speak, and it's not something that we are afraid of at this point in time.
You mentioned you've signed a deal there. What does that look like for you? Do you have any other deals upcoming? I know you can't tell me details, but...
Certainly, I think now we have the guidance at least, and then you can try to look into those numbers. But this was the very first ones, and I certainly think that you can expect more to come in kind of the same prospects, so to speak. Yeah.
And then finally, if we look just broader, in recent weeks, there's been news out of the US and Germany looking to a broader legalization of cannabis. Do you think that will have any impact on the market or the acceptance of using medical cannabis?
Yeah, I certainly think so. Of course, much of the talk going on right now is more towards, you can say, recreational use of cannabis. But we think definitely in our company that all kind of more acceptance of cannabis as a substance in general is positive for the whole industry. It doesn't even count whether you are doing recreational products or you're doing medical cannabis or you're deep down into pharma biotech aspects of the industry. All kind of acceptance of cannabis in overall, I think that's very positive for all of us, definitely.
Well, it's definitely an exciting area, and thank you so much for coming here, Jeppe.
Thank you for having me.